What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for liking, commenting and subscribing over the last few weeks. It definitely means a lot that we're on this journey together. I've been aquascaping now for about 3 to 4 years or so. You know, like yourselves, whether you're just a beginner getting into the hobby, or whether you're a bit of more of a in-depth level like myself that's dealing with high-tech aquascapes. Hopefully today I'll be able to answer a few questions from my personal opinion. It doesn't have to be, there is no right or wrong answer, to be honest with you. There's lots of misconceptions online, but I'm just giving you my opinion and my personal opinion of what I've experienced over the course of the last 3-4 years to get where I got to. So that's just an introduction really from me. I started like anyone with the rainbow gravel, the pirate ships. We've all come on this journey together, and hopefully we can all experience great things with our planted aquarium. So this is the reason why I wanted to do a quick Q&A. Bear with me, I've got my my laptop in front of me with a few questions that you guys have reached out and asked. So just starting off, the first question really. So we've got Eloise. Eloise is a friend of mine on Instagram. She's a lady from Holland that I know pretty well. Great aquascaper, very good at nano aquariums and stuff. But she generally asked a great question here. So she asked me, how long did it take to scape this tank behind me? So this tank probably took 2 weeks. 2 weeks to actually, from the first second I put the first piece of wood in, or rock, or whatever it may be, took 2 weeks. That was like, evenings where I was kind of coming back, having a look and see what the layout looked like, and how much sort of, everything needed to be altered over the course of the next few days. So in total, it took me about 2 weeks. Aquascaping is not my full-time job. It's just a hobby like a lot of us do. So it's just basically, working around that busy schedule. So yeah, it took me 2 weeks. One thing about me is, I'm very indecisive. So if I like an idea 1 minute, you guarantee the next day I'm going to like something different and want to do that. So it's very difficult for me to actually kind of pick an idea and kind of stick with it. I love plants too much. For instance, this tank here originally only had a plan for about 6 or 7 different species of plants, and unfortunately I went a bit trigger happy and ended up purchasing a few more plants over the last 3 months. And yeah, now there's probably 25, maybe 35 different species in here. So I'm very indecisive. I'm not one of these people that can kind of go out to nature, have a look at a nature environment, like a wilderness, like a woodland area, rainforest, whatever it may be. I can't just think I'm going to make that. It doesn't work like that for me at all. It's just a case of getting some nice wood that I like, or some rocks or sand or whatever, and try and come up with a concept. So how I kind of come up with a concept here really is, trying to create that V section throughout the middle, using different stem plants at the back. We've got rotalas and etc, many different plants in here. But it was kind of just winging it really. I just literally put things together, learned a couple of things across the way, looking on Instagram for different inspiration ideas, and this is kind of where we got to. So yeah, 2 weeks. Okay, so next question, a friend of mine, Ben Gill. Shout out to Ben Gill. He's actually Gillscapes on Instagram. Great guy. He's currently building me a dojo, which is going to be awesome. He's going to build me a dojo where we can actually, anyone doesn't know what a dojo is. It's basically a sand pit where us sad aquarium hobbyists make a layout in the sand pit before we put it inside the aquarium. So it's just a little bit of a practice. You can plan more ideas before you put it on the aquarium. So hopefully that should arrive next week. And thank you very much to Ben. But he's asked me a question here. It's pretty crazy. I mean, he's asked me, give me a full plant list and future plans for this aquascape. To be honest, Ben, I don't think I'm about to give you a full plant list, and we're going to be here forever. You know, I'll give you a couple of examples here. You know, Monte Carlo. We've got, you know, Rotala blood red at the back mixed in with Rotala HR. We've got Myrophyllum. We've actually got some of the pond plants, actually. Myrophyllum, I think it's called Red Parrot, is actually mixed in the back there. We've got some Bucephalandra, which is obviously one of my favourite plants here. We have got, what else have we got here? Eriocaron Vietnam, which is over here. So yeah, there's lots of plants in here that, you know, I can't really tell you exactly how many and all the species, but maybe I might list it down below if you're interested. But for now, unfortunately, Ben, that's all you're getting. Future plans. I mean, future plans with this Aquascape, to be honest with you, it's only 3.5 months old, but unfortunately I have to move house in a few weeks, so this will be broken down. I was actually originally going to move the whole tank and actually, you know, bottom the water down and try and move it, but I'm in an apartment, so it's going to be very, very difficult to try and move. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to start something fresh, something new, and I've got some fantastic ideas, so I can't wait to share that with you, definitely. AD Myers, good old AD Myers, great guy as well. I had the pleasure of meeting him in Horizon Aquatics a few weeks back for Josh Sims' workshop. AD's actually asked me, where do I take my inspiration from? Like I said before, you know, I can't really take inspiration from nature. That's just my personal opinion. I love going outside and being outdoors and being in nature, but I can't replicate what I see in nature to be inside the aquarium. It's just not the way I sort of get my creative process and how I work, really. My inspiration kind of comes from looking at other people's aquariums without sounding like, you know, you're copying, but we all get inspiration from one another. So it's just basically searching the internet, going on YouTube, Green Aqua, ADA YouTube. You know, I think I actually got this idea from the ADA YouTube, which was, I've got it written down here somewhere. So it's called Full Colours Under the Water. So it was a 180 centimetre tank that they actually made themselves, and it was beautiful, you know. I don't think I've replicated it, you know, to a T, but I definitely want to take some inspiration from that, especially using the different colours in the background here. So yeah, also just a quick heads up, the skylight up here, it is a bit wonky. Unfortunately, I'm using the ceiling brackets, which actually meant to hang from the ceiling, but unfortunately it's just going over my little bracket here, so it is a bit wonky. So don't hate me too much for that, but that's where we're at. Question. Okay, so Danielle, so Danny actually owns Aqua Atlantis over in Cape Town in South Africa. So thank you very much for giving me the question, Danny. She's actually asked me, what is the startup schedule in my aquarium? So I think any new hobbyist that wants to learn about planting aquariums, especially, I always believe that using a good soil, aquatic soil from the start is very key. You know, think about your composition, think about your layouts. You know, you don't have to go too crazy adding, you know, 20 litres, 30 litres of soil, but you got to remember, you know, the bigger the size of the tank, the more soil you're going to need. Yeah, you know, it all depends on layout, but, you know, I like sticking with a good soil, especially for plants. Planting heavy from the start as well is very important. What else have we got? Daily water changes. So daily water changes is something that's part of my maintenance regime. I do a daily water change on this aquarium for 2 weeks, every day for 2 weeks, which is 70-80% water every day for 2 weeks. So it may sound like a lot. It is a lot, but in the long run, I think your aquarium will thank you for it. The 3rd, 4th week, that's when I start thinking about, you know, adding fertilizer. And, you know, judging by the plant health, you know, judge by your plant health. I don't really ever use testing ammonia kits or anything like that. I personally believe, I work in water quality myself actually as a day job, but I believe that, you know, the different test kits that you get, the variables, you know, the difference between 0.01 of a milligram compared to whatever else you may be, it can really change. You know, you can have ammonia high 1 minute, you can have high ammonia the next day. And I just think it's just too many inconsistencies. I think that what you need to do is judge by your plant health. You know, have a look and see what the plant health is looking like. In all fairness, we have got a little bit of algae in here. You probably can't see it at the moment, but I'll put in another little video and sort of relay over the top of this so you can actually see. So not every aquarium is going to be perfect. It's just about combating the lighting, combating the balance between the lighting, the filtration, the fertilizer, and the maintenance, really, you know. So that's where we're at. But shout out to Danielle for that question. Look forward to hopefully coming to Cape Town, South Africa this year to meet lots of you guys and hopefully do an aquarium there. You know, we can all aquascape together. Big shout out to Danny, and yeah, hope to see you guys soon. So we've got another question here on a Facebook group, which is basically how to determine the tank size, different lighting for the tank, and front versus back of the tank, and placement where plants are fully grown, and how to clean later. Okay, so determine the tank size, really, to be honest, it's budget. You know, what can you afford? Everyone has different, you know, budgets, what they can afford. You know, you got to think, the bigger the tank, the more money you're going to spend on a better filter. Hopefully, you know, if you're going to be serious about a planted aquarium, you know, I always say to myself, you know, if you buy cheap, you buy twice. And I don't want to be horrible and sound that way, but sometimes when you buy cheap products, you end up having to buy a couple of times, you know, because they just don't last. And I think that if you're really invested in this aquarium hobby, try and buy the best quality stuff that you can from day one, because that will then, you know, you'll be able to use that on the next setup, whether you increase the size of the aquarium. You know, let's say, for instance, you start with a 60 centimeter tank. I always feel like that's a good beginner size to start with. You know, it's not too small, it's not too big, it's manageable. You can use a smaller filter. You know, you can even get away with using a hang on the back, an internal filter, a canister if you want to, you know. So there's many different options. But how to determine a tank size? I mean, some people might even go and think what kind of fish they want to get. You know, the bigger the tank, potentially the more fish you can get. So for me, I only like the small community kind of fish and the odd big fish here and there, but I've never experienced the big fish because I just like, you know, the movement of schooling of a small nano fish or community fish is just much more beautiful for me than rather having like, you know, 5 or 6 great big catfish. But, you know, that's just my opinion. So trying to determine the size of a tank and the lighting is definitely subjective. You know, it all depends on what you want to get out of the hobby. So yeah, and the placement of the plants. You know, the good thing about going on to Tropical website would be to do a bit more research on what plants you wanna use, what plants you like the look of, whether you want immersed growth, whether you want you know, grasses, stem plants, small plant. You know, there's so many wide varieties now. You know, for me personally, I wouldn't put a huge, great big plant in the foreground because I like the sense of depth and more of a scale. Hence why I try and use, you know, smaller plants in the foreground to create that sense of illusion, you know, for a further scale of a depth. So it all depends. But yeah, how to clean later. I mean, I use a turkey baster. You know, if you don't know what a turkey baster is, it's effectively what you do when you do cooking. You know, it's to baste your turkey with the juices, but you can actually get one of them and actually use it on the sand or the substrate or even your plants that gets all the detritus up in the water column, and you can then do a water change and remove all the particles from the water. So that's how I clean the plants, really. But because there's so much flow going through the system, you know, through the aquarium, it's constantly, you know, pushing all that detritus around and then finding itself up to where the skimmer is or the other inlet on the other side. So many options. So I appreciate that question for sure. That's a good question. Liam. So Liam Little Aquascapes, a friend of mine, Liam, great guy as well. He's asked me the tips for adding small branches without losing the detail. I think it's about plant choice. I think it's about using certain plants that may grow a little bit slower so you can maintain the aquarium, or regular, more frequent trimming depending on what one you fancy doing, or even adding the branches 3, 4, 5 months down the line. Finding little pockets to put them in, whether you put them inside the Monte Carlo or the Hydrocottle Japan, or wherever you decide to use it. You can add it at a later date, depending on whether you're going to be taking photos for a contest, whether you just want to live with it and have it in your living room. It's entirely down to you, but adding the small branches is just about what plants you choose, really, to be honest with you, or adding it at a later date. So yeah, good question, Liam. I like that one. So Ariel Sander from another Facebook group, I think it's from Planted Aquariums on UK Planted Aquariums. So he's asked the question, tips to get the plants redder, and also, do I use RO water? So no, I don't use RO water. The reason being, I'm too lazy. I can't be bothered. My kitchen sink is 5 meters away from me. Bucket, little submersible pump, straight in the tank, water straight out. Easy as that. So no, I don't use RO water. And here down in the south of England, our water's very, very, very hard. So very lucky, I can grow quite good reds. Probably not as much as what some people can with the RO water, that's for sure. But the trick is really, as you can see at the top of the aquarium here, you've got the redder plants. Why? Because they're closer to the light. So if you think about maybe using more soil at the back to maybe increase the height, to make sure that the stems are closer to the light, do it like that. Or use some sort of substrate underneath, lava rock, or even any sort of false bottom that you can raise up the stems closer to the light. So and also how to get the plants redder, that's definitely a reason how to do it. But obviously good water quality, water changes, and also using good fertilizer. Daily fertilizer for me, 6 mil, 2-hour Acrest, all in one, APT complete. So I've got a discount code, so check underneath and you might be able to get a discount code on 15%. So hit me up on that one. Jessica Helen, another Facebook group. She's changed her fish from bigger fish to a small community fish, and now she's trying to make her tank not look so empty, or sore, should she say. Using hardscape, using rocks, wood, plants, fill in the gaps, research the plants. More plants grow quicker than others, so if you want to fill that gap quick, then have a little research and get the relevant plants that you want to fill them gaps. So don't be scared of adding some more wood or rock to your aquarium at a later date if you're not happy. Christian, both are South African, I believe. Has given me another message. Recommend different fish for different size tanks. It's a difficult one, so subjective. There's so many different fish you can get. Like I said, my experience is I've never used a big fish apart from a pistogramma, which is not even really that big. Smaller the tank, the smaller the fish, the less quantity. That's all I can really say for that one, really. Jean Furton, she's asked me to talk about houseplants and different emergent plants that you can use above water. Great question. I've never really used houseplants above water, such as like monsteras or any kind of exotic houseplant. I've used Monte Carlo, Hydrocottle, Lobelia Cardinals Mini, lots of different options of aquarium plants that you can use above water that change their form. Many plants, especially if you buy them in the potted version, you'll be able to buy the potted version and they'll be able to transition. Well, not necessarily even transition, because they've already been transitioned to growing in that form. When you get the tissue culture, they tend to take a little bit longer to actually transition and have a risk of dying off. So I use the potted versions and have great success with it. I'll relay a photo of one of my old aquariums. It was an Aquascaper 600 that had lots of Labedial Cardinal Mini that went very deep purple, and it's beautiful. So I'll relay that one. So as I mentioned before, I'm in a WhatsApp group with a South African community. Speaking to a lot of them throughout the last week or so, and a chap called Hamden has actually wrote into me saying, how do I tell whether my plants are lacking any sort of nutrients, whether they got any deficiencies? And I'll be honest with you, I generally check the 2 Hour Aquas website. I know it's a bit of a cop out, but in terms of when my plants are melting, I kind of just put it down to poor maintenance, and also something's not right in terms of a balance. But how do you determine this? I mean, you kind of visually look at them and see what they're doing. There's many pages online that would tell you these kind of things. I do know some of them off the top of my head, but not all of them. But I use an all-in-one fertilizer to make sure that doesn't really happen, to be honest with you. The second question he's asked me is how to test if my CO2 is enough. So it's pretty straightforward, really. You can kind of use a drop checker. As you can see, because I've now got the CO2 at a good level, I don't really need the drop checker. For me, the drop checker is just more equipment inside the aquarium that I don't really want inside the aquarium. But the CO2, how to tell? So really using a drop checker, you've got your outlet glass here. You probably, somewhere around here, you would put the drop checker, and you fill it up, with the solution that they give you, and then just work out how long it takes for it to go lime green. We're looking for a lime green color, even a yellow, to be honest with you. But I put my CO2 on 3 hours before the lights come on and turn them off 3 hours before the lights go off. That way you stop any extra usage, wasteful, waste of the fire extinguisher, whatever method you use, it eliminates you, wasting CO2. So 3 hours before the lights come on and 3 hours before the lights come off. A lot of different shops and galleries that I know, that have amazing, incredible tanks. Shout out to Dave at Aquarium Gardens. He told me about putting it on for 3 hours before, and touch wood, since then I haven't had any sort of staghorn, any sort of issues with the CO2 fluctuating. So 3 hours, all depends on the tank. I'll start off with 1 hour at first and see how you get on. Look for signs of staghorn algae, which could be a balance between the light being too strong and obviously the CO2 not being enough, or 1 minute being too much and then not enough. So it's finding the balance. My tank is smelling. I mean, that's a bit of a difficult one. I mean, what does it smell like? If it's smelling like rotten eggs, it's probably going to be some sort of ammonia spike. And how to get rid of any sort of bad smells inside your aquarium. It could be anything, couldn't it? It could be a decaying fish. It could be livestock. It could be ammonia spikes. 9 times out of 10, it will be an ammonia spike. Cyanobacteria, many things it could be. I don't know what it smells like personally, but it's very hard to sort of determine from that little bit of information that you've given me. But water change, any problems with your aquarium, I really recommend doing a water change to solve that solution, really. Okay, cool. So I think we've had quite a few questions today. So I appreciate everyone that's wrote to me on Instagram or Facebook. It's been great. So love answering your questions. Hopefully I've given you some good answers. Bear with me, my first actual live face-to-face video. So any questions, don't hesitate to, don't hesitate not to drop me a message. Give me a message on Instagram, and I'm always willing to help. So hope everyone enjoyed this video, and carry on scaping, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.